Okay, so question, does FDA provide estimated damage by storm frequency? Absolutely. So let's look at where we can find that in HEC-FDA. So we're looking at the user interface again. If we go to evaluation, results, damage by analysis year, well, we want a damage reach summary of the exceedance probability function of damage. We'll look at a particular plan, year, stream, and reach. And we have a damage exceedance probability function for residential, commercial, and the total. And we have this by exceedance probability, and we're looking at really small steps in exceedance probability. Okay, so that's all the way up to the, so that's the 100,000, that's the 10,000 year event. We're looking at a total of $25,680,180. Okay, let's look at the next question. Where do we have the chat? So if the mean benefit to cost ratio is less than 1, no project, but with the confidence interval, 90% may give a benefit to cost ratio greater than 1, can the project be approved as an NED plan? And I saw we got one response to that from Johnny, that the PRNG allows for benefit to cost ratios less than 1 with workarounds. In the Corps of Engineers, we're looking at other benefit categories. We're looking at other social effects, regional economic development, and environmental quality. Any of these could be emphasized more than the National Economic Development account. So the Corps is looking at all 4 accounts. And I do know of a few examples where projects have been recommended even with a benefit to cost ratio less than 1, just because the other social effects were so important. One example I can think of is in Alaska, a small boat harbor investment project was recommended, even though it had a benefit to cost ratio of being less than 1, because that was the only means by which this community, this particularly mostly um, indigenous population community, that was the only way that they could access trade. That's the only way they could get stuff in and out of their community. And so it was really important that they have that infrastructure, even though we couldn't show quantitatively benefits above 1. Next question, but playing around with confidence intervals. So yeah, I mean, models are very, it's very easy to lie with statistics, right? If you know statistics in and out, it is so easy to lie with statistics. And so I think, yeah, it's possible, but I think that we, at least at the Corps, we do our best to be very specific about the information that we're showing. So whether we're showing the mean or the distribution, and we show that we calculate benefits based on the mean. There are other ways to, yeah, parameterization matters a lot, and can really cause benefits to swing one way or another. But we do our best to represent the conditions accurately. Is there a corresponding effort to identify the uncertainty associated with costs? That is such a good question. And it's something that I know, at least among the planning community of practice, we have been begging for. Because costs, at least in the Corps of Engineers, costs are handled by cost engineers. So economists, we do the benefits, the cost engineers do the costs. And just like we need to use HEC-FDA certified software to estimate the benefits, there is software that is preferred for developing the costs. And as of yet, we've had no progress getting cost distributions from the cost engineers. But that is something that we've been asking for a long time, and I expect eventually we'll get what we want, what we've been asking for. HEC used to talk about adjusting the freeboard height based on uncertainty. Is that no longer the case? That is correct. We no longer rely on freeboard, and instead we talk about the project performance statistics. That is annual exceedance probability, conditional non-exceedance probability, and long-term exceedance probability. And being able to describe those performance statistics with uncertainty and the benefits with uncertainty, that gives a more accurate picture of the uncertainty in damage reduced and the uncertainty in the probability that the floodplain will get wet more accurately than just tacking 3 feet on top of a levee elevation. Simon, is there anything that you would like to add to that? Because I only showed up to the Corps after freeboard ended. I was not part of the freeboard approach, but I think you were.
I think you summarized it all.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's me pretending to be an engineer. I do my best to pretend. Okay. And yeah, I did forget to record a part of it, but yes. So there's a question that I record the entire presentation. I forgot to press record. Are we recording right now? Yeah, we're recording. Yeah. Part of it I forgot to record, but I do have a recording of a very similar presentation, and I can point you to that for folks who missed it. You can refer to that presentation. So I do still have a recording of the content that we missed. How are the values for cultural resources, historic properties accounted for, given they are a non-renewable resource, cultural resources being both archaeological and built environment? So this often comes in through the cost side, right? So if we see that there are going to be any impacts to cultural resources as a result of our flood risk management projects, then we have to mitigate for those impacts. And the cultural resources mitigation comes, there's a cost to that, right? So that comes through on the cost side of the balance sheet. Do HEC tools model sediment deposition or scour? Simon, that's you. Thank you.
Yes. So HEC-RAS has extensive tools for both sediment transport, deposition, and scouring. HEC-RAS, I think it was version 6.1, came out a while ago with 2D transport for sediment, and they've made improvements through from there as well. So extensive tools, good documentation. It's all available on HEC's website. So yeah, HEC-RAS does have that available.
Thanks, Simon. Tim reminded us that MCASES is the software that's most commonly used for the cost engineering. Thanks, Tim. And then you pointed out that a benefit to cost ratio being less than 1 is also considered with a population of at risk, and that often falls under like other social effects. I think one day we're going to see. There's a good chance, or a chance. There's a chance that one day we're going to see life safety be the priority metric for justifying flood risk management projects, but now with the PRNG as it is, the NUD count matters the most. But there's going to be a day that we see. I think there's going to be a day when we see life safety outweigh NED. And thanks, Iman, for pasting in the link to the new 2D sediment transport in HEC-RAS. release notes. Okay, so we have covered all the questions that were in chat. Does anybody have any other questions? Drop in chat, come off mute.
Hey, Richard Simon, this is Tim. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Hey, the last time I talked to the Army Corps of Engineers in Omaha District, and you just brought some enlightenment. I talked to my old supervisor in Omaha District, and he said that the Corps was not going to adopt PRNG, but apparently that's not correct based on what you were just saying before, that they are going to look at the other trade-offs. Is that correct? I'm just kind of curious.
So,
Or would you rather not answer? I mean, in this form, that's fine too.
is the Corps going to adopt the PRNG?
Essentially, everybody was told to, but
yeah. So when I look at our regulations, and I'm thinking ER 1105-2-100, that's engineering regulation 1105-2-100. We have the PRNG is right in the front of that thing.
oh, okay.
Right. So there is a statement that says that. Bear with me. Yeah. So we are authorized to carry out civil works, water resources projects, so on and so forth. Planning for federal water resources projects constructed by the Corps of Engineers, along with those of the Bureau of Reclamation, Natural Resource Conservation Service, and the Tennessee Valley Authority, is based on the principles and guidelines. Yeah. So it is, PRNG is still what drives the way that we plan.
That says PNG though, not PRG. That's PNG. Yeah. Yeah.
I get my
1105, 100 hasn't been updated, I don't think. Yeah, no, it hasn't been updated.
Right. And so I guess I should, the update to the PNG, which sounds like that's the PRNG, which I mixed up. I understand that to be in draft, and it's been in draft for a long time. And it also sounds like 100 is not going to be updated. There are updates to appendices, but I don't know that 100 will be updated.
All right, great, thanks.
Sorry for mixing those acronyms up.
May I ask a question on the new version of FDA?
Sure.
The current versions, you can trick it to do grid cell analyses.
Mm-hmm.
Will the new version be much easier to do grid cell, which would be incorporating the FIA, which is a single event, into a multiple event?
Yeah, absolutely. So HEC-FDA version 2.0 will handle native outputs of HEC-RAS to include 2D hydraulic modeling. So the modeling based on that will produce gridded data, right? So we'll be able to handle the raster data, whether 1D or 2D, but I think that we're going to ask for it to be in the format of 2D. But we're also going to handle the HDF outputs, which I think are a bit easier to work with. So there will not be a need to do any of this pre-processing to trick FDA into be able to do some geoprocessing. We'll handle that natively within the software.
Thank you for the presentation today. I think it's been very informative. I had a few questions on modeling crop losses. And I think with HEC-FDA, you could model a simplified version of a depth damage curve for crops. And I learned today that FIA offers a more comprehensive solution looking at depth, duration, and time of flooding. So I wanted to know if you recommend using FIA, what are the trade-offs switching over from one tool to another? and whether the FIA tool already has built-in damage curves for common crops, or whether we have to develop those ourselves. And then my last question is whether the model takes into account crop replanting when flood events happen early in the year.
Thanks, Johnny. So I have, I might talk about which model, and then I might rely, Simon, if you could tell us about some more details about using FIA for that. Deciding which model ultimately depends on your needs. So if your needs are to simply calculate damage for a given event, then FIA is probably your best bet. If you need to assess risk, so if you need to multiply probability times consequences to justify a project, then HEC-FDA might be your best option. And so the one other thing that comes into account is the level of detail. FDA right now would be a cursory way to evaluate, to assess the risk to agricultural, to crops, right? Because there's not really a good way that what really matters is like time of year, right? Time of year matters, and then duration matters. And both of those, neither of those things are part of the HEC-FDA methodology. I've seen it done, so it can be done roughly. If a high level of detail is warranted, then I think that, and you need to assess risk, then it seems like the best option would be something like HEC-Watt with the FRA compute. So the HEC-Watt with the FRA compute also assesses risk. Basically, you're running a Monte Carlo simulation using HEC-FIA, HEC-RAS, HEC-HMS to get a much higher fidelity result. And with that, I'll pass it to Simon. What can you tell us?
So if I remember correctly, your second question was about adding additional, if curves already in there. I always recommend, if you've got better data, to add in your own depth duration curves or things like that. Then for the planting time, FIA does allow for having a first crop and then also a second crop. So if like you can have like, oh, if you can't plant the first one because of a flood event, you can have a second one being like a second choice, and then it would calculate the loss, right, of having to switch to the second crop. So that's a feature in FIA as well.
Thanks, Simon. Any follow-up questions on that? I rambled quite a bit. Not sure if I answered your question.
Yeah, that's helpful. I think we'll, as a team, decide which route we'll take, but it's good to know what each tool offers and how we can leverage that. So I appreciate the response.
Of course.
Any other questions, folks?
No more questions. This is Tim again. Can you hear me, Richard and Simon?
Yep.
Okay, great. If there are no questions, I think my boss might have been hard, but I want to say thank you for this. There are different levels of knowledge on this call. I think, and I'm hoping that everybody got something from it. I've had some emails, people saying that they think you did a great job. Others, they had a lot of experience and wish you went in different directions. But if my boss doesn't get angry with me, I'm going to say on behalf of the National Water Management Center, I appreciate this because of the agreement that we had in place. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to put something together where we could probably have more in-depth training from you guys. But I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. And on that point, we do offer full week classes. We offer full week classes for that revolve around all of our disciplines. The in-depth training is the formal in-depth training is through the USACE Learning Center, but we are always willing to put together detailed courses outside of that formal approach.
Yeah, then it's a matter of us finding the money, so.
Oh yeah, as always, that's yeah, typical thing.
Yeah, that's just ever short questions or just, oh, how does this work? Yeah, you have our emails. Feel free to reach out to us. We'll be happy to help out.
Yeah, I'll be sending an
And-
email to get the links for these, to make sure we got all the updated, that other training course with the full recording, just in case. I noticed some people that weren't on here, I didn't see their name, that wanted to participate. So at least I could forward it to everybody and they can have it. I appreciate it. All right, thank you.
Yeah, it'll take, it may take a little bit of, so what I need to do is, once those recordings are processed, download them, I need to upload them to YouTube, and then we'll share it that way.
No hurry, no hurry, no hurry.
Okay. And I do want to give you, so we'll send out links to the recordings. We'll send out links to our training. We will send out, I'm going to send out a link to where you can get some help. So we call that discourse. That's where we have our different sort of like support user groups. And there was one more question, where can you get information on the full week classes? So there is we have full virtual classes that are already put together, and we'll include links to those. But then if you're looking for a class tailored to you, and your colleagues, then that would something I think we'd have to coordinate. Well, that's above my pay grade.
Yeah, we will have to talk because, having worked for the Corps and work at NRCS, there are some things that we do a little differently.
And we'd be very happy to tailor our training to how you're doing things.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, well, we'll talk later. Okay, I appreciate that.
Sounds good. All right, folks. Well, if there aren't any other questions, let's conclude our webinar and look out for our email with all those links and the links to the training, the links to the recording, and links to where to get help.
Thank you.
All right, folks. Thank you, everybody.
Cheers.
Thank you, everybody.